What you're about to see is gonna melt your brain.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Oscar Isaac was just talking about Moon Knight Season 2 and the Midnight Suns team-up that Marvel is working on, so we'll break it all down because it pays off a couple of post-credit scenes we've seen so far, and Marvel is starting to do more with the bigger supernatural characters. So if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. We already knew that Marvel was working on Moon Knight Season 2. Oscar Isaac basically revealed it pretty soon after Moon Knight Season 1 was done, like they were down in Egypt planning Moon Knight Season 2.
The question on everyone's mind, is there a Season 2?
Moon Knight? Why else will we be in Cairo?
He's also supposed to come back as Moon Knight during What If Season 3, probably a different version of Moon Knight, because I think he's going to be in the episode where everybody gets their own Gundam mechs. We got a little teaser for that, but that's like a completely separate thing because most What If episodes take place in other universes. There were a bunch of other Moon Knight Season 2 teasers last year, and the showrunner had been talking more about follow-up stories, but most of them were specific to Moon Knight himself, like Jake Lockley, then Mark Spector, Stephen Grant dealing with him first, then taking on Khonshu, who's the real main villain of most Moon Knight stories anyway. But now Oscar Isaac himself is talking about doing a Midnight Suns team-up.
I thought there was an interesting opportunity with Midnight Suns, you know? There's such interesting characters in there, and you know, now that we've set the groundwork with you know, learning who Mark, Stephen, Jake, Lesto are, it could be an interesting opportunity to see him as part of a team and what that dynamic would be. So I think that'd be exciting. So I think for me, I definitely hope that there's some room to explore that possibility. I haven't seen the Deathstroke stuff. That's pretty fun. No, look, for me, I don't have like a hard, fast rule anymore. It's just, for me, it's just about, is there a great story and is there a great opportunity to do something interesting and something different and something that would excite people, whether that be DC or anything else.
This is a pretty good indicator for Marvel's endgame plans for all their supernatural characters right now in the timeline. I believe the idea is that Midnight Suns is supposed to focus mostly on characters Marvel doesn't plan on using as main characters in Avengers 5 or Avengers 6 Secret Wars. Like, people that will be used in Midnight Suns won't be featured in really big ways in the next couple of Avengers movies. There's so many new characters they're introducing between Marvel Phase 4, Phase 5, and Phase 6 that I don't expect everybody to come back in Secret Wars, so they're just looking for other big team-ups out there, and there are so many from the comics. The other funny thing that just happened, you may have seen, Oscar Isaac hangs out a lot with other Marvel actors because they're friends in real life. So like right after they released the new Fantastic Four movie teaser with the main cast, Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, he and Oscar Isaac were posting pictures together celebrating. There was even a bunch of fan art people started posting of their Marvel characters together, but that doesn't mean that the Fantastic Four are going to show up during Moon Knight Season 2 or Moon Knight is going to be in the new Fantastic Four movie. You have to remember that movie's mostly going to be set during the year 1963 in the MCU, so Khonshu would have to have a completely different avatar even before Arthur Harrow during that period. And I believe the next big place Fantastic Four are supposed to show up after their solo movie is in Avengers 5, just based on where everything is headed. I've seen a couple reports they might pay off the Black Knight deleted scenes from Moon Knight Season 1 during Season 2, but Marvel is also planning on using Kit Harington's Dane Whitman character in their Excalibur-style British team-up project, so we'll see about that. If you didn't see any of the deleted scenes, during Moon Knight Season 1, they revealed they had planned to have Kit Harington's Black Knight help Moon Knight with his quest to learn more about the Egyptian gods, the Ennead, as he researches Ammit and learns more about Arthur Harrow, and just in general how Khonshu's pantheon of gods works in the MCU. And it would have been because of their relationship working at the same museum. In the MCU, Dane Whitman's day job is basically as a historian and a scientist working at the British Natural History Museum. You saw that a lot during the Eternals movie. That's also the museum where the Stephen Grant persona was working at the beginning of Moon Knight Season 1. So the whole idea is that once he learns about Ammit, he starts doing all this research into the Egyptian gods. They went up cutting Black Knight's scenes and their planned cameo, but during that part of the episode, he would have gotten a lot of this information from Kit Harington's character. Then Stephen Grant learns about Mark Spector. He learns he's another persona created by him as a child based on their childhood hero in that movie, then learns about Khonshu, and everything else kind of spins up into the more supernatural aspect of the show. And that basically would have been the end of the Black Knight cameo scene. It would have just been that early crossover at the beginning of the series. But the current Midnight Suns team that Marvel seems like they're planning right now is Moon Knight, Werewolf by Night, paying off his post-credit scene with Man-Thing. I don't know if Man-Thing would also be on the team, but then obviously Ghost Rider, because they started to set up some Easter eggs for a new Ghost Rider inside the MCU. Mahershala Ali's Blade character is supposed to be one of the team leaders of that Midnight Suns team. Maybe Kit Harington's Black Knight character, because it seems like there are a couple different teams that they're thinking about putting him on right now. Scarlet Witch's character, who isn't coming back for a while, but this Midnight Suns team-up project wouldn't happen for a while. We're supposed to see some Scarlet Witch stuff going on during the Agatha Coven of Chaos show, or whatever that's going to be titled. There's this big joke with them changing the title for the Agatha show, like every single time there's a big news release or a new trailer that gets dropped. I just did a really big trailer video for that, so I'll link that down in the description below, because it's going to be super trippy. That'll come later this year around Halloween. Lot of magic-related stuff happening during that just because of the characters. And instead of Doctor Strange putting together this Midnight Suns team, it would probably be Wong, just because Marvel's using Doctor Strange to wrap up Avengers 5 and Avengers 6 Secret Wars with their big multiverse saga. Usually anytime Marvel needs a magic-based leader character with a certain level of authority and they can't use Doctor Strange for whatever reason, it winds up being Wong instead. For a little while, it seemed like Wong was going to become the new Coulson of the MCU, just showing up in everybody's project. Best example was during She-Hulk and Shang-Chi. Normally, because you're using magic-based character, you'd expect Doctor Strange to be the person to show up, since he's like the main magic user in the MCU next to Scarlet Witch and Agatha right now. But because Marvel doesn't want to overexpose Doctor Strange, and like Benedict Cumberbatch's schedule wouldn't allow him to be in all these different projects, it's the same reason why you don't see Spider-Man in every single series that takes place around New York City, like Daredevil Born Again. He's not going to be in every single episode, or even any episodes for that matter. And it looks like the main villain of this first Midnight Suns crossover would either be like Lilith or even Mephisto, because Marvel's slowly introducing the Mephisto character, but I don't think that's going to happen for a while, because it was originally supposed to happen in the Ironheart series of all places, and he was going to be played by Sacha Baron Cohen. Supposedly he filmed some scenes for that, but then they put Ironheart on a shelf, like they finished filming it and just put it on a shelf to release it whenever they wind up doing their Armor Wars movie, if that does still wind up happening. Lilith was supposed to be in the new Blade movie. She might still be the main villain in that. Generally in the comics, Lilith's story is based on a lot of like biblical, mythological tales about the character, like she was the bride of Satan or Lucifer in some stories, or Mephisto in other stories. She rebelled against the MCU version of the one true God, like capital G God. He does exist in the Marvel Universe, but he's so OP, he kind of breaks any story that he's in, like, how come God let this happen? So generally that's why you don't see him actually showing up in a ton of stories. But like there's an MCU iteration of the Christian version of heaven in the backstory that you read about in the Bible, like the whole war between Lucifer and God, the rebellion in heaven. Lilith was cast down to hell with him, everyone else that rebelled. She's also meant to have been the very first human woman, the original wife of the biblical Adam who left him and went to Mephisto before Eve was created. So there are a couple versions of her origin just based on which character is telling it in which comic book she's in. She shows up in a lot of Ghost Rider stories specifically, and as you would expect, Midnight Suns team-up stories, so it makes sense they would want to use her in the new Midnight Suns movie. In fact, she was actually the very first villain that the Midnight Suns faced when the team formed for the first time in the comics. It was basically the Midnight Suns coming together to fight Lilith and a bunch of her demonic children. Marvel hasn't said when the Midnight Suns movie would actually happen, but it wouldn't be till after all of these connected movies and shows happen, maybe some of the other characters are introduced like Ghost Rider for instance, and some of the team members return to the MCU. Really good example is Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch.
That is she, the one who can save our queen.
More, she will save our world.
But the end of Moon Knight Season 1 set up a lot of the events that Season 2 will deal with pretty well. In that tag scene at the end, it was revealed that Moon Knight had more personalities inside him than he realized. During the season, they were only conscious of the original Mark Spector personality and the Stephen Grant persona. During the tag scene, presumably after he'd fallen asleep at some point at the end of the season, the Jake Lockley persona became dominant, which we'd had some Easter eggs for earlier in the season, like, wait a minute, who killed all these people? Like, what happened here? Why is there a massacre here? Oh, because it was Jake Lockley.
That wasn't you, was it, Stephen? Not a chance, mate.
There are a couple moments where they were both pointing at each other saying, was it you that killed all these people? No, was it you that killed all these people? Well, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. Then who was it? So at some point at the end of the season, they fall asleep. The Jake Lockley persona becomes dominant, and then Khonshu forms a new contract with him to become his avatar, reasserting his control over their collective body, so to speak. Because even if he only has a contract with one of the personalities, he still gains control over their entire body. And if you weren't sure during Season 1, I think they were pretty clear about implying what was really going on. Khonshu was meant to be the real villain of Season 1, and will continue to be the real main villain of Season 2. They really wanted to end Season 1 letting you know how terrible he was, like he was never going to let Moon Knight, Mark Spector, the other personalities go. They would always be under his control. So he has Jake Lockley kill Arthur Harrow in the backseat of that limo on his orders, and that moment is meant to be from the comics with him in the business suit. So the whole idea during Season 2 is that Mark Spector, Stephen Grant become aware of Jake Lockley's existence, and the three of them battling it out for control of their body first, while they're still under Khonshu's control. He can still force them to do whatever he wants them to do. Khonshu also implied in that tag scene that there were many more personalities inside his body that he could form subsequent contracts with, and he could continue to break his mind so that he would develop even more personalities beyond that. There are a couple of major Moon Knight villains they could still use as mid-bosses too, like underneath Khonshu as being the main boss. It just depends on what they want the main theme of Season 2 to be. They already changed the origin of the Arthur Harrow character from the classic Moon Knight comics, making him a version of Shadow Knight, who in the comics was Moon Knight's real-life brother that briefly formed a contract with Khonshu, becoming a more evil version of Moon Knight. And that was kind of the backstory of Ethan Hawke's character, is that he was the previous version of Moon Knight, who was a way more hardcore version of the character, and that's what caused him to eventually break his contract with Khonshu and form the contract with Ammit, who admittedly was an even worse god. But there's Black Spectre, there's Morpheus, not the Sandman version of Morpheus, a different one. They didn't use Werewolf by Night, like I said, because he was meant to debut during the special presentation. They can introduce him during the series, and they can form a friendship together, fighting more supernatural monsters. But there's a bunch of stuff coming up. We're supposed to get a new Deadpool and Wolverine trailer soon. There's a new X-Men 97 trailer also coming real soon. Those episodes will be like the next big Marvel series that we'll get. Of course, I'll do videos for all that. And because we're starting to get more X-Men and mutants in the MCU, it's also possible that they can start crossing over into Moon Knight Season 2, any other series or movies for that matter, in the next couple of years. So for those of you that want to see more X-Men-based characters just showing up all over the place, we're actually starting to see that happen. I just did a video for that bigger Fantastic Four teaser Marvel release. Click here for that, and click here for all my Deadpool and Wolverine trailer videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.